days at the stick. From who's got it better than us to brick by brick. It's always the 49ers way, from off-season to game day. Yeah, we talk back. It's the 49ers Cutback.
It's 49ers Cutback podcast time. Welcome to the show, everyone. What an interesting game that was. I think that everyone probably has the same feelings. The 49ers should have absolutely blown the barn doors off the Carolina Panthers in this one. When you just look at how the defense played, it really came down to one thing. The 49ers dominated in every aspect except turning over the football. Luckily for the 49ers, Jair Brown came through with 2 interceptions of his own, and the defense only allowed 3 points off 49ers turnovers, because if they didn't, this game could have been entirely different. But if you don't turn over the ball, it could have been extremely different for the San Francisco 49ers. Brock Purdy did not have his best game today. I think that there were definitely I think the last interception that he threw, J.C. Horn made a phenomenal play. J.C. Horn is one of the best cornerbacks in football, and there's a reason why. But the other two were just not good throws, especially the one that he threw when he was throwing it to Pearsall. He had George Kittle underneath, take the safe throw, get the first down, live to fight another day. Not so much. So that one was extremely tough. And so, yeah, and I like this from KNDR. He says, shout out to Upton Stout for rocking the double mouthpiece. Someone had to do it, right? You see it in college football all the time. Somebody was going to have to rock the double mouthpiece, and Upton Stout is that guy for the 49ers. And I thought Upton Stout played one of his better games in this matchup. And we've heard a lot of good things. If you listen to John Gruden, I listened to John Gruden on YouTube, his breakdown or talking about the game, and he was giving a lot of love to Upton Stout. Troy Aikman doing the same thing. I think it's illustrating that they're seeing some good stuff, from the young rookie. Now, there's a long way to go, but there was some really good stuff from the defense, especially. And, here's from Louis. Says, "And is the toe still hurting Brock Purdy?" I don't know. I don't think anything about the interceptions that he threw today lean into it being because of the toe. I think you could tell before that he couldn't get into his throws, right? There was a little less velocity on his throws beforehand. Maybe the ball was going a little high. I didn't see that with these ones. In fact, the ball needed to go a little bit higher to Ricky Pearsall for that one. I would have loved him to throw it underneath to George Kittle or take off running. He showed that he could do that in this game. So I don't think the toe is the reason. I just think Brock Purdy made a couple of bad throws. The first one to Juwan Jennings. Juwan Jennings is open. But when you throw with anticipation, you don't have a cannon, right? You don't have an arm like, some of the top guys. That ball, if it's behind, it's going to be intercepted by a really long and really good player like J.C. Horn. And I think that one got him. The second one, that's on Brock Purdy. He's climbing the pocket. You've got to throw that one over the top where only Pearsall can get it, or do what I think everybody else was thinking in the moment, throw it to George Kittle, get it underneath, get the first down and live to fight another day. That's the kind of the pick your poison you have between Mac Jones and Brock Purdy, right? Brock Purdy's the guy, he wants to push the ball down the field. He wants to be a little bit more greedy, take more chances down the field. Mac Jones, more likely to check it underneath, take what the defense is giving. What you're hoping is you're going to find a happy medium from Brock Purdy. That's what you saw last week. This week, it was a little bit more of the aggressive Brock Purdy, and I don't think it always worked out. Like I said, the third interception, I put that completely in the category of J.C. Horn made a phenomenal play, because I think even Kyle Shanahan was looking up at the screen like, where do you even come from? J.C. Horn was not supposed to be there. It was zone coverage, and he just came completely out of his zone and made a tremendous play. You tip your cap on that play. But overall, the 49ers did great. Now, please like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. The listening audio platform, 49ers Cutback on Believe Network. Please give it a 5-star rating. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel, the title sponsor of 49ers Cutback. Now, I was getting into the box score because I thought it was increasingly interesting to see how this game went. And I always enjoy looking at how the teams played, right? And so you look at it and you see that the 49ers dominated in every category. I mean, every single category. And you're going to hear a lot of things this week about an ugly win. And it does feel ugly because of the 3 turnovers. You never really got that sense of domination. But make no mistake, the 49ers dominated this football game in so many of the categories you have to win. And it was a defensive domination by them that nobody saw coming, right? Rams, tough game. Last week against the Cardinals, they gave up over 450 yards from Jacoby Brissett. Tough game. And you're like, wow, this defense is reeling. Then they come out and they absolutely take the Carolina Panthers offense to the woodshed. You know, and I want to make sure I get all this. Keys and says, what's up, Ant? Saleh has to win coordinator of the year. Robert Saleh and that defense bounced back. And I think that you got to look at this and just they keep figuring out ways to reinvent themselves. And I love it. There's always right. They're finding ways to win. Last week, the offense needed to be the team that was going to get it done. Special teams had to chip in. This week, it had to be the defense. The offense wasn't going to get all the things done. They were going to let you down a little bit. So those are keys. And then you got this from David Marazzo. Wasn't expecting the defense to carry that win, but I'll take it. Go Niners. And that's what I want to talk about a little bit here. So you look at the first downs. 49ers beat the Carolina Panthers 23 first downs to 12. And I said in my game preview show that I expected the 49ers to use the clock, run the football with Christian McCaffrey, be successful on third down, move the ball, and then score in the red zone. That was kind of the makeup of how they win this game. But they go 23-12 with first downs. It's 11 more first downs than the Carolina Panthers. I said that the Panthers were going to go under 35% on third down. It was worse than that. They were 1 of 7. 1 of 7. The 49ers defense did not allow the Carolina Panthers to get anything on third down. If they didn't get it on first and second, they weren't getting it. For the 49ers, they were 7 of 13, over 50%, continuing the trend of better offense on third down, where they're 46% for the season, and better offense inside the red zone. Then you look at the plays, and this is where you start wearing down a defense. 49ers had 70 offensive plays to the Carolina Panthers 43. 49ers, 340 yards of offense. The Carolina Panthers, 230. And that's with the Panthers only having one less drive in this game. You look at the passing yards, 49ers, 193. It wasn't dominant. Last week, only 200. But you're looking at the numbers, and once again, they win. Right. You have the interceptions. That's the one thing that's bad for both teams. But rushing, 49ers, 147 yards on the ground. Red zone, the 49ers are 2 of 3. Carolina is 0 of 2. You start adding all this up, and you get 37 minutes of offense from the 49ers and 22 minutes of offense from the Carolina Panthers. Utter domination in every category, minus turnovers. The 49ers turnovers definitely hit them. That is for sure. And what is up to my guy, David V, using his members' abilities to, and he's been a member for 50 months. I mean, great. Thank you so much, David V, for being a member. He says, hashtag TCC LFG, let's effing go. Yeah, I mean, I love it. You know, and David Marazzo says this, what's up, fam? David Harmon says this, what's up, fam? Is the Panthers D legit or just sloppy quarterback play? It was sloppy quarterback play. There was one play that is phenomenal from the Carolina Panthers, and that's the third interception by J.C. Horn. Other than that, this Carolina Panthers defense has holes. That's why I thought Christian McCaffrey had a shot to run for over 100 yards in this game. He came close. He got 87. And so he did a really good job of, being able to keep the ball on the ground. But when you look at the 49ers running game, McCaffrey goes 24 carries, right? He has 3.7 yards per carry. Brian Robinson goes 7 for 40. You get Brock Purdy, who adds in 16 yards. Pearsall with the 2-yard run. But you get 38 carries for 147. And we know if you run the ball at least 35 times, you have a really good chance to win. If you get to 40, you win, right? That's just like how it is. The 49ers took care of business on the ground. Then all you had to do was have George Kittle get his 6 catches for 78 yards. McCaffrey, 7 for 53. Juwan Jennings, 5 for 41. Including another touchdown. Juwan Jennings with 4 touchdowns on the season. And, he continues to be the one bright spot at wide receiver right now. Nobody else really involved in this game. Pearsall only 2 catches for 6 yards. Demarcus Robinson 1 for 8. But this game definitely showed they were going to work through George Kittle. They were going to work through McCaffrey in the passing game. And with the running game, they were very dedicated to it. And Brian Robinson was successful in this one, 5.7 yards per carry. That's a big way to go about winning. And, I think this is one of those things where Brock Purdy's going to take a lot of heat. He's going to take it in. He knows that he made some mistakes. There's a couple of those balls that he's going to want back, and that's okay. I think that what he has to do is bounce back. We need a better performance next week against Cleveland. And the thing that's tough about that with Cleveland is you're going against a Jim Schwartz defense that's going to have Myles Garrett rushing the passer. Another bright spot for the 49ers is they didn't really give up any sacks in this game. They had a couple of times Brock Purdy evaded, but this isn't a really good Carolina Panthers defensive line either. As far as rushing the passer, their leading, pass rusher is Nick Scorton, the rookie. So, yeah, I mean, it's not like this Panthers defense is phenomenal, but they've played good enough. They've won a lot of games, 6 games this year. They'd have won this one. They would have been number 1 team in the South. So, yeah, I mean, they're not terrible. The 49ers definitely handle business, except for the turnovers, which is just so tough. You just can't have those turnovers in a game, and you can't have them from your starting quarterback. And unfortunately, Brock Purdy has been prone to turnovers, especially this year. He just hasn't been able to get everything, that he wants done. He's just not looking as clean as he did in some of the other years. But the good news is everywhere else it was good. And I want to talk about Jair Brown in 1 second, but I will say this. If you're going to bet with FanDuel. Right now, FanDuel has all the Thanksgiving lineup ready for you. They got the Green Bay Packers against the Detroit Lions, with the Lions favored by 2.5 at home. They've got Kansas City going to Dallas, with Dallas, the underdog at home. And then you got Bengals, Baltimore. So you can check all that out with FanDuel. But I want to talk about Jair Brown, because Jair Brown is definitely a player that has been up and down, and especially down. And he came through with some big plays in this game. And I know that Troy Aikman highlighted the grab by Renardo Green, and that's understandable. But that was things that happen a lot of times at the top of the route. I will say this. Jair Brown played his best game we've seen since he was a rookie. That first interception that he made in the red zone was so pivotal to the 49ers winning this football game. He definitely baited Bryce Young into throwing that football to the back of the end zone to the tight end, and then he went and made the play on it. And the second one, Troy Aikman's right. He sat on that route over the middle of the field. He did not go with Jalen Coker, and he was prepared. And he climbed up on that, drove on that ball, and made the play. And it was fantastic. And we got to give him credit when he goes out there and makes plays. And so I thought it was a pretty good performance from Jair Brown today. And those were 2 clutch plays that the 49ers needed. They went into this game and they were pretty equal with Carolina when it came to turnovers, turnover differential. 49ers were -5, Carolina -4. And they walked out of this game, losing the turnover battle by 1. And so that's what made them capable of winning. But yeah, it was extremely tough for the 49ers, and they couldn't have done it without that defense. That defense was really, really good. David Marazzo says this, was a little pissed at Jennings after the game until I saw what Morig did to him on the last play. Good for you, Juwan Jennings. I had the same exact reaction. Seeing him being pulled off, after the game is over, you're like, what in the world, Juwan Jennings? Like, you got to be smarter than this. Now, we did all know that he got hit in the private area earlier because of the way he was reacting after the 49ers got that first down. And so you knew that happened, but until they showed the shot, Monday Night Football shows a shot of Morig doing, just absolutely hitting him right in the nether regions. And yeah, that's BS stuff, right? That's Bush League. You don't do that in the NFL. You got to be bigger than that if you're Trevon Morig. And hopefully the NFL takes that into consideration, because there's a chance that Juwan Jennings not just gets fined, but maybe there's more than that. I'm hoping it's just going to be a fine for Jawan Jennings. And I don't know what they should do to Morwig, but he definitely needs to have some sort of a penalty. It needs to be bigger than Jawan Jennings' penalty because there's no place for that kind of dirty play in the game. But, Jawan Jennings, he's the kind of guy, he's going to stand on business, and he did. And so, yeah, he's not going to back down. He doesn't care who you are. I thought that this was one of a very Jawan Jennings game. I love the way that he played in this game. I thought that he looked the most comfortable that I've seen him. And I thought that was exactly what you were expecting from the 49ers offense when it came to McCaffrey, Kittle, and Jennings. I think that all three of them operated very well within this offense. Kyle Juszczyk as well, with how he blocked. I thought he did a pretty good job as well. The one thing that was kind of holding this offense back in this game was the quarterback. And, how much of that is just the way that Carolina played it? Was it Brock Purdy just being a tick late, a little off? I don't know. And, I'm pretty willing to allow Brock Purdy to have the benefit of the doubt. You have bad games, and you just got to turn it around. Now, if this continues to be a trend and he's going to turn over the football, he's going to put his team in a bad situation. But I don't think Brock Purdy will do that. And, Ronnie Montoya says this closer game than it should have been. That is 100% accurate, Ronnie. The 49ers should have won this game by 3 scores at least. So coming into this game, Vegas had the 49ers favored by 7.5 down the stretch. And, I thought that they were going to cover. I thought they were going to win by 11 points, but I thought it was going to be a higher scoring game. I picked them to win 34-23. They win by 11, but they win 20-9. I did not see a defensive performance holding the Carolina Panthers to 9 points. I thought that it was a brilliant performance from Robert Saleh and that 49ers defense, which I think is going to be a highlight, of this game. But I love how they continue to find ways to get it done. And we got to also say this. 49ers special teams did their job today. It did their job. Matt Gay came in. He did everything he was supposed to do. The coverage teams were on point. They executed flawlessly, so you didn't have to worry about that. So once again, 2 phases of the game or the team played well. Last week, it was the offense and special teams. This week, it was the defense and special teams. Complementary football. When someone's struggling, the other one picks up. Now, the offensive numbers in every other category are dominant for the 49ers besides turnovers, which is kind of frustrating because you're right, Ronnie. This game didn't need to be close. They needed to go ahead and, really blow the doors off of Carolina, and they should have. This should have been another big 30-plus point scoring game and dominated Carolina. Like, this should have been a blowout, a second consecutive domination for the 49ers, and it just wasn't score-wise because of the turnovers. And I think that that's huge. And David says, so who do we want to win the Packers versus Lions game on Thursday? This is the good news for the 49ers, is right now the San Francisco 49ers are sitting in the 6th spot in the playoffs. With this win, now originally they were supposed to go to 91 percentile opportunity to make the playoffs. However, with some of the way the games went, Next Gen Stats changed it. And in fact, they still have the 49ers percentage-wise at 7. I thought they were going to jump the Packers to 6. I think that this is one of those situations where I would rather have the Packers make the playoffs than the Lions. So I would say I would rather have the Packers win because I think the Packers are the less scary team compared to the Detroit Lions. The Lions with all their playmakers, right? They're a little bit more scary. But this is one of the great things with the way that the schedule works this way, or this year. You're going to have Lions versus Packers coming up, and you have Bears versus Eagles. You're going to have some teams that suffer some losses this week. If you can win, it helps you. So the fact that they're playing each other in the grand scheme of things improves the 49ers' ability to move up and down as far as seeding if the Packers lose. But I think we all believe that it's better for the 49ers to have the Packers in the playoffs than the Lions. So that's something to remember. Peter Garrison says this, Jennings TD breaking tackles. The picture and the shot that some people got, I know the SF Niners, Brad Graham, had a picture, and it had all 3 of the Panthers around him, and he still scored a touchdown on this. It's remarkable. That's the Jawan Jennings that we all know and love. And that wasn't the only one. Catching the ball in front of the sticks, making a little shake move, getting upfield. Like, this is kind of what Jawan does. And I thought that it was on display in this game. And we hadn't really seen it so far this year. But that was one of the fun parts of this game, was Jawan Jennings making that big touchdown. Morani says, and I liked how the defense bent but didn't break the first half. Those 3 turnovers could have gotten ugly quickly. It could have. You figure the 3 Brock Purdy turnovers resulted in 3 points. Just 3, and 2 short fields. One of those inside the red zone. 49ers get an interception, no points. Another one, the J.C. Horn second interception, they held him to just a field goal. So the fact that they had 3 interceptions off Brock Purdy and only turned it into 3 points is exactly why they won this game. They were able to play really good when they had to. They were effective in the red zone. They were fantastic on third down. 1 of 7 on third down. Are you kidding me? 0 of 2 in the red zone. That's how you win football games as a defense. And, all this conversation, and it's real conversation about the 49ers not being able to generate a pass rush. And they found a way to get it done in this game without generating a real pass rush. They had a couple of times, right? They got some shots on Bryce Young. Cleveland Farrell got his 2nd sack of the year, which I thought it is important to make sure that he's out there, because he does have the veteran ability to continue to get after it. It's really good, And how about this? David Campbell says, didn't Bryce Young throw for over 400 yards last week? Makes the defensive effort look even better. He did. He actually broke the Carolina Panthers franchise record for yards in a game through the air. He was fantastic. They couldn't stop Teteroa McMillan last week. They couldn't stop Xavier Legette. Those dudes were just straight going off. And then this week, you look at it, Ted McMillan went 2 for 35. Xavier Legette went 3 for 22. Jalen Coker went 3 for 32. They held him completely in check. Really, the only one that got going in this game was Rico Dowdle out of the backfield. He was 4 for 36. Chuba Hubbard was 4 for 27. The running backs were the problems, not the wide receivers at all. But yeah, Bryce Young, he played really good last week, and they just absolutely pestered him the entire game, and they made it really, really tough. I don't know if they made it out injury-free. I do know that Sam Okuwanu was dealing with an injury. I saw Renardo Green had left the game, but I haven't heard anything about that yet. I'll have to double-check after the recording. But I haven't seen anything updated yet when it comes to what the 49ers are doing injury-wise. I didn't get to hear Kyle Shanahan's presser. Usually I try to check out who they talk about when it comes to injuries. You got Kyle Shanahan talking about the Morwig thing. He didn't really like that a whole lot. He was proud of Jawan Jennings for handling himself in the situation. Which is entirely important. You have to do that. Let's see. I'm gonna go ahead and check to see if I can find out anything about the injuries real quick. But I'm sure a lot of the stuff is going to be about Jawan Jennings. That was one of the things that was really important. Eddie Pinheiro, he'll be back at some point, but it was good to have Matt Gay out there able to make those plays and do what he could in this game. So I like this right here from David. He says, we need Bethune back. Robinson's tackling scares me. I think that is something that we're going to talk about probably this week, is we knew that Tatum Bethune is better against the run. He's a better tackler. And I thought there were some moments that Curtis Robinson struggled. Robinson's normally better in coverage. And so maybe that is something that we'll still see, that we'll get an uptick in coverage. But I only think Bethune is going to be out probably, one more game. I think he misses the Cleveland game. I think there's a real shot for him to come back, after the Cleveland Browns. So the 49ers are going to have the bye week. They've completed the first 2 parts of their opportunity to win the 4 in a row and really set themselves up for the playoffs. But they've got to go out there and they've got to make sure they win against Cleveland, which it's never easy to win in Cleveland. 49ers don't historically have a great record playing in Cleveland. It's one of the things they struggle at. So that's going to be one of the keys for sure. David Campbell says JJ going to get some of that newly available Ayuk money. I mean, I think he's trying. I think he wants that money. That's for sure. Because, I mean, Juwan Jennings, he is going to be a free agent. I think he's going out there and trying to prove it. I think with the Richard Sherman comments, and I haven't really talked a lot about Brandon Ayuk. It's not really something that, I enjoy talking about, like that kind of stuff. But Richard Sherman basically said it's important that Brandon Ayuk go play. And he basically is acting like he can. So, that's something that's going to play out. But on the field, guys like Juwan Jennings, guys like Ricky Pearsall, especially guys like Juwan Jennings, I mean, he's going to go out there and try to make some money for sure. Sticky says this: why wouldn't DBs do what Horn did all the time when they don't see offensive skill players on their side of the field? So it's a risky play for this reason. If you make the play like he did, it's phenomenal. If for some reason George Kittle, who stayed in the block and released late, breaks outside and there's no one there because you vacated your zone, George Kittle catches the ball for a touchdown. Or if somebody releases late from the other side and comes across and gets open. So it would leave you vulnerable. Now, I will say this: J.C. Horn made a heck of a play, but I don't think defensive coordinators are going to encourage corners on the opposite part of the field to go make that play. I don't even think there's that many corners in this league that could read it, recognize it, and make the play. It was a really fantastic play. I think it's a good question, but you can get burned more times than you're going to make the play. And so that's why Troy Aikman was kind of tipping his cap and saying how great of a play it is. And there's no quarterback. He even said that there's no quarterback that's going to think that corner is going to be there because they're just not rolling over on that portion. But yeah, with nobody there, he made a decision and it worked. But yeah, I think that is probably not going to happen very often because you can put yourself in some very vulnerable situations as a defense. And so, that's what happens when you take chances. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. You're going to take the good with the bad. And, that's kind of how it is, and David Mrazzo says Horn is a heck of a corner. Yeah, I thought it was, he was great in this game. And, he made some plays. I mean, those were some contested catches for Juwan Jennings. He made a play on that ball. And so, I thought that J.C. Horn played well. I thought the 49ers helped him look even better. The second interception he had, though, like the one that, Sticky was talking about, that was one of the most phenomenal plays that I've seen a player make as far as a corner abandoning his zone and going all the way across and making the play. You just don't see that. Everyone talks about playing team football, doing what you're supposed to do. So it's literally one of those times you come to the sideline and a defensive coordinator says, hey, that was a fantastic play. Don't you ever do it again. But, J.C. Horn, yeah, he played phenomenal. And yet the 49ers still walked away with a win. And that's it. They're not always going to be pretty. There's going to be a lot of yuck games during a season. What you have to realize is that as long as you get the win in the end and you're able to overcome the turnovers and overcome the mistakes, then you move on to the next day. And what you're hoping is you're always fighting to have that perfect game. That's what the 49ers are battling for. But it's not going to be easy. And this was a game that the Panthers were very motivated. Remember this. The Panthers were extremely motivated. If they'd have won, they would have been in the first place in the NFC South. And the 49ers went in and just, absolutely walked all over them in every category except turnovers. And with Jair Brown's 2 interceptions, it ended up being a 1 turnover difference, which is crazy. And so, and I like this from Peter. He's talking to Sticky. He says, he put that on film now. Some team will see that, run the same play, but will free the tight end. Yeah, if somebody's going to find a way, right? If you're being too aggressive as a corner, they're going to find a way to get you at some point. Hopefully Horn isn't out very long. I know he was in concussion protocol. They said that he was, having some problems throwing up on the sideline. You can't have that. And so he was got a pretty good concussion. So hopefully he is back sooner rather than later. I don't like seeing good players out. I like to see them on the field. And, Carolina's got a lot of big time games coming up. And, they need to win some of those games. And sometimes those games help the 49ers when it comes to the playoffs. Because right now the 49ers are sitting in the 7th spot, but there are teams on their heels. 49ers at the 7th spot at 8-4. I think percentage-wise, I keep thinking they're going to move ahead of the Packers, who are 7-3-1, but I'm not 100% sure how that works. So they might be sitting at 7, but Detroit is right behind with 7-4. The Carolina Panthers are now 6-6. So I do believe this is correct. So what you got right now, updated playoffs. The Rams are the number 1 seed. They have a 99% playoff probability. Eagles are in the 2 seed. They have a 99% probability of making the playoffs. Those 2 teams are for sure in. The Bears are sitting at 3. Yeah, they only have a 61% chance of making the playoffs, but it is climbing pretty rapidly. The Buccaneers have an 85% chance now that the Carolina Panthers lost this game. Seahawks, 92%. Packers, 76%. 49ers, 86% chance of making the playoffs. The Lions, who are in the 8th seed, have a 78% chance of making the playoffs. Or sorry, 76. They actually have the same percentage of making the playoffs as the Packers. That game on Thursday is a huge pivotal game. And then after that, the Panthers at 6-6, this really crushed their playoff hopes. They dropped a 14% chance. Cowboys at 5-1, 8% chance. Falcons, 3%. I think it's really now an 8-team race. Lions, 49ers, Packers, Seahawks, Bucks, Bears, Eagles, and Rams. And the Bears, Lions, and Packers have a lot of games to play each other. So they're going to be beating each other up. And the 49ers got to win the games they're supposed to win. They've got to win next week against Cleveland. If they beat Cleveland next week, which Shedeur Sanders is going to be starting, that'll be a little bit fun. Myles Garrett's looking to break the sack record. Hopefully it doesn't happen next week. That's going to be a tough, gritty game. But it's also a going home game. You win that game, you go on vacation, basically. You get to take time off with your bye week, as you then will come back with Monday night versus the Colts. You're coming back on a lot of rest. Then you've got the Chicago Bears, which could be a pivotal game. By then, the Bears might not be a divisional leader. That might be for seeding in the playoffs. And then you've got the Seahawks. And depending on what happens between the Seahawks and the Rams, that game could be very pivotal in seeding or opportunities. Because if you're the 49ers, and let's say you can get to the 5th seed, right? That's where the Seahawks are right now. If you can get to the 5th seed where the Seahawks are now, that sets you up to play a pretty nice game against the Buccaneers, who are reeling right now in round 1. If you get at 6 right now, you would play the Bears. I think those are favorable matchups. Those are matchups that you feel like if you go execute, you can win. And I don't think the 49ers of all the teams, and I know how good the Rams are. They're playing really good. I don't think no one's scared to go to SoFi, though. They're not scared of SoFi Stadium. And so I think that them getting home field advantage is not the worst thing. I do believe it's better than having to go to Philadelphia. So when it comes to home field advantage, I don't think that's the worst thing. Vegas 49ers says Jair Brown is becoming a leader, y'all. I think this is who they thought Jair Brown was going to be last year. Jair Brown was doing all the interviews, doing all the meeting stuff with Fred Warner. I think they really thought he was going to ascend and take the next step to be, the next Talanoa Hufanga, the next safety that was going to step in there and make plays. And I thought that he really struggled last year with Nick Sorensen as the defensive coordinator. I think he's been a lot better this year. I think that they want him to continue to grow. This was a big game for him, but now he's got to continue, right? He's tackled better over the last couple of weeks. Got to give him credit for that. Now he made plays on the football. Got to give him credit for that. So improvement for Jair Brown, that's for sure. If he can continue this trend, that's going to be huge for the 49ers, who have had lackluster safety play, I would say, this year. It's just been really inconsistent. I think Malik Mustafa's getting his legs underneath him. Jair Brown played a lot better. Can they keep it up? Can they be consistent? That's going to be one of the keys. So we got this right here from Juan. He says, I was disappointed in Purdy's play. I'm not mad because we won, but he has to play better. He's still our guy. Quarterbacks have these type of games. I think that's a proper perspective. You have to be disappointed with Brock Purdy's play. I think even Brock Purdy's disappointed with Brock Purdy's play. But he's going to not play this bad all the time. If it is consistent, then yeah, that's when you have to look another way. But the likelihood is he's going to come out. He's going to play better next week. He was coming off a 3-touchdown, no interception game. So when they have these mistakes, you kind of You understand it, you recognize it, you say what it is, and then you move past and you say, okay, just don't make it consistent, right? Do something better. Do play better next week. So I think that's a proper perspective to look at. Disappointed in his play this week? Absolutely. Play better next week, Brock Purdy. And I think he will. I have enough faith in Brock Purdy. He continues to bounce back every week. So, yeah, I'm okay with that. Morazzo says, even with our injuries, I don't think teams want to see us in the playoffs. No, I don't think so either, because you don't know what you're going to get. And it's a tough matchup for a lot of teams with Christian McCaffrey and George Kittle. The fact that you have to cover them with safeties and linebackers, which isn't the deepest position group in the NFL. So many teams have loaded up on corners. They've got defensive linemen. But when you have to cover Christian McCaffrey and George Kittle in space, it makes some of the matchups more difficult for opposing teams. 49ers are still one of the only teams that run 21 personnel. So they put you with 3 linebackers on the field, and then they can target you. They can take advantage of, right? Akeem Davis-Gaither last week, touchdown George Kittle. This week, out in space, backup linebackers versus Christian McCaffrey. Sometimes you can't make those plays, and then they get extra yards. So these are some tough matchups for opposing teams. So when in a matchup league, you get the right matchups in the playoffs, and you're right, that's going to be difficult for teams. And I think there's a lot of teams that would rather play a team that's going to run 11 personnel the whole time. Makes it easier. Luke Luna, my guy, how's it going? Says Purdy doesn't have the arm to zip throws. Horn got the third in because of that. Mac could have got it there before Horn got there. I think that one right there, right where Horn comes across the formation, I don't think Mac Jones would have saw him either. So Mac Jones wasn't exactly zipping footballs. If you're watching him over the last 2 games that he started, he was more lollipopping balls over the middle of the field too, making sure he got the proper depth, the proper timing, everything else. And that's what he saw. Brock Purdy never saw J.C. Horn coming in. Now, I do believe the first interception that Brock Purdy threw, Mac Jones had a more of an arm to get it in front, where Jawan Jennings had a little bit of a space on J.C. Horn. That one is probably more like a better argument that a guy with a little bit more arm strength could complete that. But it was a little bit behind. So, it's one of those things. It wasn't because the ball was in the right spot and J.C. Horn ran in front of it. It's because, it was a little bit, as far as directional, in the wrong spot. So, but yeah, I mean, definitely when you're talking arm strength, Mac Jones has more arm strength. I would argue Brock Purdy has more anticipation. So it's the give and take again between two quarterbacks. And the 49ers like Brock Purdy, the way that he kind of calls things and runs things, his mobility, moving in the pocket a little bit better, right? Like that one that he scrambled, that probably would have been a sack of Mac Jones. I'm not saying for sure, because Mac showed enough ability to move in the pocket, but those are the kind of plays that would normally be a sack. And Brock Purdy escaped. And those are the things you love about Brock Purdy. You just don't love when he gets into these bad games where he turns the football over and you really should have scored, 35, 40 points in this game, and you don't, because of, how ineffective he was as far as taking care of the football. Juan says, do you know the Carolina secondary was showing Purdy during those do I know what he was showing, what they were showing? I don't know for sure. This is why I always like getting into the L22 film, because sometimes with the TV copy, you can't tell. It's just like with the, the touchdown to Bernardo Green. I had a friend text me and he's like, hey, was that on Malik Mustafa? That's on Bernardo Green. And it's hard to tell because, they show the TV copy. You can't always see the alignment. I'm thinking that the touchdown on Bernardo Green was because they were running a cover 3 buzz and Malik Mustafa came up in and then they went deep over the top. That was my belief. But the film will show it. So we'll have a better idea once we break down the All-22 and look at it, that's for sure. And David says, Mac is a statue in the pocket. Great backup. I think Mac Jones is a fringe starter in the NFL. I do think he can be a starter. I think some team is probably going to want to trade for him in the offseason. I think he showed enough that the 49ers are comfortable with him. But make no mistake, Brock Purdy, when he's right, and he wasn't good tonight, but when he is good, he's really good, and the team is better because of him. So this is going to be a conversation. Brock Purdy threw 3 interceptions. People are going to ask the question if Mac Jones should take over, and that's going to be a conversation point the whole time. The only way Brock Purdy can stop that conversation is by having good games. And, I think he's going to have the opportunity to do so, and this is going to be fun. And, and Vegas says this. He says, a couple of these picks would not have happened if he'd used his legs. Yeah, that one to Pearsall, especially. He could ran it. He could have threw it to George Kittle, who was wide open over the middle of the field. Either one of those things prevents the picks. He wants that one back. I get probably that one's probably the most frustrating to him of all the interceptions. And, and Peter says this, bottom line, can't turn the ball over. Not if you want to go deep in December and you want to get to February. Yeah, that's 100%. You've got to start changing it. You've got to become a team that creates turnovers and doesn't turn over the football. Turnover margin and turnover differential is very important in December, January, and February football. And if you are going to be a team that's going to win in that category, you have to win the turnover battle. You have to score in the red zone. You have to win on third down. Those are all pivotal things. And the 49ers are doing a lot of that. But the turnover battle is still something that they're not getting done. But the good news is they dominated in every other category that wasn't turnovers. And the turnover battle, luckily, they only lost by 1. But when you look at the numbers, the 49ers dominated from top to bottom. They dominated time of possession. They dominated in the red zone. They dominated on third down. They dominated in total plays. They dominated on the ground, where they ran the ball 38 times for over 140 yards. So in those categories, they handle business, and that's how you win games. And the defense showed up, and that's exactly what you need to have happen. So please like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Listening audio platform, 49ers Cutback on Believe Network. Please give it a 5-star rating. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Until then, stay safe. Remember, the right way is always the 49ers way.